Cato's Republic, to which his translation gave that Latin name, res publica, the common weal. His advice to his brother on provincial rule rings with the key words peace, clemency, mildness, humanity, justice, pax, clementia, mansuetudo, virtus, humanitas, justitia, to be taken up in chorus by responsible Rome. In his high-mindedness, Cicero had actually believed he could save the Constitution by a concord of orders. The breaking of that hope spotlights his wry and self-searching grandeur, an introspection paralleled in this bust of an immolator. Cicero, writes Atticus in 49 B.C., Caesar and Pompey have not aimed at the honor and happiness of the state, but at absolute power. Both want to be kings. Maybe you have been looking for a little consolation. I cannot see any. We could not possibly be worse off than we are, more wretched, ruined, disgraced. And to Paetus, after Caesar's triumph, I think I know well enough what will happen. Those who are in power will have their way, and power now will always go by the sword. Whoever could not put up with this was in duty bound to die. It is the braver example of Cato which haunts him here. But since I, hero and philosopher in one, took life to be the best thing after all, why, I cannot but love a man whose kindness has let me have it. Though even if he were really eager for a free constitution, he has no power of action, so deeply has he entangled himself. We are slaves to Caesar, and Caesar slave to the times. Prepare for the worst, and bear what is to happen. With the bronze called Caesar in the National Museum in Rome, the bitterness of tyranny and proscription comes to a focus of grim involvement. As in Catullus' poem, scourging Caesar, Pompey, most of all the parasite Mamurra, depravity and blame whirl in self-wounding fury. The man who can face this, the man who can take it, is Horde himself, a drunk, a swindler. Mamurra laps the fat of crested Gaul and farthest Britain. Pansied Romulus, you see this thing, you take it, how he struts his way through everybody's bedroom, like a white pigeon, a soft-skinned white Adonis. Pansied little Roman, you take it in, you bear it. You are like him then, as drunk, as Horde, a swindler. And was it for this, Rome's only great general, you conquered the remotest island of the West, to feed this screwed-out tool of yours, Mamurra? See him spend 20 or 30 million? First were his own estates, then the loot of Pontus, then of Spain, here Tagus, gold-bearing river. They say the Gauls and Britons fear him, and you love the mongrel, both of you, Caesar, Pompey, while he swills oil of patrimony. For this, like in-laws, father and son, you have sluiced wealth and all of the world city. Let this Greek 5th century BC Riachi warrior left, beside the Vatican bust, probably of Julius Caesar, right, raise the question another 2,000 years of debate will not end. How far Caesar's private ambition bodied forth an Alexandrian awareness of his world calling, by one man rule to reconstitute a vitiated Rome. In 60 B.C., when he gave up the triumph won in Spain to become triumvirate consul, and so form an army by the conquest of Gaul, did he launch Lycurgus and Alcibiades upon a time always more darkened to cynical excess? And 11 years later, threatened by Pompey and the Senate with prosecution, when he took his army across the Rubicon, alia jacta est, what die was cast? Did a last Greek flagrance of mind venture itself on the great-souled spendthrift and demagogue, already doomed by senatorial conspiracy to subserve the cautious weight of Augustan rule? His virtues be execrated, for they have ruined my country, said Cato. That was of Caesar. But there was a tide, which Machiavelli defined for all who came after him. Cicero, too, blamed individuals, accidents, had painfully to discover that the new triumvirs would not relinquish power. His last letter to Brutus, 43 B.C., is of disappointment in this Octavian, by whom he was to fall in the purges of that year, victim of the man he had hoped to guide. But what grieves me most, even now as I write, is that where the Republic has accepted me as a surety for that youth, almost indeed that boy, it hardly seems that I can make my promise good. Here is Plutarch's account of the calculating schemer, not quite suppressed in the official portraits. And now, more than at any other time, Cicero let himself be carried away and deceived, though an old man, by the persuasions of a boy. He joined Octavius in soliciting votes, and procured the goodwill of the Senate, not without blame at the time on the part of his friends, and he too, soon enough after, saw that he had ruined himself and betrayed the liberty of his country. For the young man, once established and possessed of the office of consul, bade Cicero farewell, and reconciling himself to Antony and Lepidus, joined his power with theirs, and divided the government like a piece of property with them. Thus united, they made a schedule of above 200 persons who were to be put to death. It is the scene Shakespeare shows us in Julius Caesar. How quickly the august image smooths and idealizes itself, enacts in life and art the poetry of Virgil. We have reached the ultimate age foretold by the Sibyl song. Again the great cycle begins, the first time returns, the virgin justice descends, Saturn's reign is restored, from heaven to earth he comes, of the new world the firstborn. In a Rome harrying itself by civil war, others shared in the myth of an age of gold. Horace invites us to sail to the blessed isles, where Ceres year by year crowns all the untilled earth with sheaves. But Virgil turned his entire creative output to making that vision history, and with such sway that the cold genius of Octavian and the artists of his chief work, the Areopagus, or Altar of Peace, convert the dream facade into the truth of Rome. Behold how the great world threatened under its cloudy dome, the land and far-spread seas and the sky's fathomless home, how all created things rejoice in the time to come. The eclogues so begin it, leaping from actual abuse and decline, the land grab of 41 B.C. in eclogue 1 and 9, to prophetic paradise. In the Georgics we go from tot bella per orbem, the globe all war, the fields rot in neglect in 1, to the praise of Italy and rustic happiness in 2. Here blooms perpetual spring. Twice teem the flocks. Hail, land of Saturn, mighty mother thou of fruits and heroes. Still the year o'erflows with young of kine. Still Ceres, wheaten sheaf, loads with crops the furrow, bursts the barns. Such life the Sabines led. Etruria thus to greatness grew, and Rome with circling walls clasped to her single breast the sevenfold hills. The Aeneid, too, though its theme is war, rests on that recovered Arcady. Evadna's Latium, Book 8, was Saturn's refuge from Jove. He gave it laws. Under his sceptre were the fabled golden years. But we have heard in the prophecies of Book 6, Caesar Augustus, a god's son, shall rebuild the golden age through Latian fields once ruled by Saturn. So, of course, Italy, as bountiful Tellus Gaia, is central to the altar of peace. The great wheel is a destiny involving gods, nature, and man. We have considered nature, As for the gods, Polybius had been puzzled to note that superstition, for the late Greeks a vice, was the moral strength of Rome. Religion changing roles with cultural need. For the Homeric Greeks, life force. For the Romans, discipline. For the Christians, mystical hope. But by the time of Virgil, Roman faith was as undermined as Roman agriculture. So pious Aeneas' dependence on the gods, whose agent he becomes, iusa divum exequitur, was also a creative leap by which the reliefs of the Araparchus begin with this damaged sacrifice of Aeneas, and end with Augustus as Pontifex Maximus, leading his family and friends, the family of state, in an offering for peace. The repeated prophecies of the Aeneid are fulfilled. Jove to Venus in Book 1, the togaed nation, masters of the world, then wars shall cease, the rugged time grow mild. Jove to Aeneas in Book 4 of the mission of his line, to rule over Italy, and to law's bidding make the whole world bow. And of course the prophecy of the underworld, and the future carved on the shield. Gibbon remarks on Augustus' skill in playing Roman citizen and leader of the Senate, and perhaps the most touching thing about the Araparchus is that so pompous a fulfillment of divine and world destiny remains a simple gathering of wives and children, relatives and friends. Old Maecenas, Virgil's loved patron, touched with lacrimae rerum, as when Augustus and Octavia, reading in the underworld canto those predictions of their golden age, came to the lines on the death of Marcellus, manibus date lilia plenis, give hands full of lilies, and broke into tears. Strange how Homer is reversed. The instinctive life, which was affirmative there, has turned to weakness, to the romantic longing which made Virgil's voice falter at Dido's line, since this name only of guest survives that of husband. While what was negative in Homer, destiny, against which Greek life smilingly pitted itself, has become with Rome the heavy hope. That is the pronouncement which stands in Book 6 at the center of the epic. Humphreys. Rome, that glorious city, will bound her power by earth, her pride by heaven. These are Iulus' children, Caesar Augustus, son of a god, founder of an age of gold. He will extend his empire beyond the Indies, beyond the normal measure of years and constellations, where high Atlas turns on his shoulder the star-studded world. Others, no doubt, will better mould the bronze to the semblance of soft breathing, draw from marble the living countenance, and others plead with greater eloquence, or learn to measure better than we the pathways of the heaven, the rising of the stars. Remember, Roman, these are your fine arts, to rule the people under law, to impose the way of peace, to spare the humble, and war down the proud. It is as if the prima porta Augustus had been made to fulfill that command. And as Aeneas takes up the shield carved with the future of Italy, from Romulus and Remus to the defeat of Mark Antony, Antony, unlike high-souled Aeneas, captive to his African Dido, with horrors, an Egyptian wife, as Aeneas, uncomprehending, but proud and happy, lifts to his shoulder all that fortune, the fame and glory of his children's children. Augustus here assumes his symbolic armor, under the gods of the sky, the conquered earth, reconciled by Rome. How fitly the stone mouth might sound Augustus' account of his own reign, the